Welcome back, everybody. Today is a very point-laden day in terms of what we're going to be covering. But oddly enough, this is going to be a pretty short video because what we're going to be doing in this particular module, just putting together all the stuff that you've been working on over the course of this entire class. Obviously, you've already turned in a skeleton paper at this point that included a title page, an abstract, an introduction. Last week or last module, you worked on your methods section and your results section, and we've, over the course of the semester, also accumulated a very good citations and reference page. And hopefully, you've already been working on things with respect to your discussion when you started talking about the implications of your results in a few modules back with the assignment that we had. Really, all we're doing at this point is finding a way to tie all of that together into a full paper, which might seem like a lot, but hopefully, if you've done all the original footwork that you needed to do, it's just that last step. So in terms of what you're going to be doing for this rough draft, this is kind of your final paper. Honestly, if you put together an amazing rough draft, I've had this happen before, you're kind of done with the class at this point. You'll get points for the rough draft. I'll tell you it looked great. You'll turn it in again and get full credit for the revised final paper. If you look at the point distribution, you'll see that this rough draft is worth significantly more than the final draft of the paper. There's logic to this. This is going to be the heaviest lifting. This is going to be the culmination of everything that you have. And most people, once they're done with this, are just going to need to do a few minor tweaks to produce a final paper format. But to get to that point where you maybe don't even have to do a final paper, or you're just doing minor tweaks, we want to make sure that we're putting all of our energy into this section. One of the things that I strongly suggest you do when you get to this section is really try to avoid just copying and pasting the stuff that you've already done into this final paper, because what that tends to create is something I like to sometimes call a Frankenstein paper. This happens a lot with students that write papers as a group. One person's in charge of one section, another person's in charge of another section, and so on. They combine those sections to submit it, and it sounds like completely different voices, and they seem to be talking about completely different things. And as a reader, it's really tough to follow. Well, this also happens not only in those cases, but in the case where somebody's done different compartmentalized components of a paper at different times, and then they just copy and paste them all into one paper. You don't want to do that for this. You can use most of the stuff that you've had before, but the main work that you're going to be doing if you've got all of that stuff organized is helping make it flow. That means you should be focusing on the tenses, future tense, past tense, which most of them should be future or past tense at this point. Sorry, not future, past tense at this point. Being able to kind of talk about how one thing led to another and why you did these things, don't being not being redundant in different places, and really just kind of showing that not only can you write each component separately, but you can find a way to have them flow between each other like you would read in any research article that's out there. So if you are at this point where you're just kind of finishing up the paper, all you need to do is again tie everything together. Probably need a little bit of work on the discussion section, even though again, you covered some of that already in your previous interpretation of the data assignments. But here with the discussion section, you also want to make sure that you expand out into some of the other literature that's out there, talk about future plans, other things that you'll see when you read other articles. That's once is what you want to include in there. Since that is a major component to this that we haven't covered before, you'll see there's a lot of weight on that discussion section for this. Same thing with the results section, where you've done all the calculations you need, talked about how you need to present that stuff in APA formatting, but you haven't had a ton of points assigned to you correctly doing that. In this one, you do want to cover all the key elements to your data that you've compiled. That's descriptive statistics, the inferential statistics, measures of effect size, the key things that we've already talked about. You're going to want to present those, but more specifically, you want to present them in the right way. APA formatting, as we talked about in a previous lecture, is very stingy when it comes to how to write out your results. There's very specific things that you need to do, very specific ways that you need to introduce stuff in a kind of chronological order. And I want to see that in this paper because if you can develop those skills now, again, you can use the tools that you're developing within this class for that senior thesis. You'll know what to include, you'll know how to write stuff, you'll know how to transition things much, much better if you take the time now to work on it. You also see there's a lot of points with the methods section. We talked about the methods section last time, talked about how it's supposed to be divvied up. We went into the details of what should be included within each of the subcategories of the methods section, but you haven't any points assigned to it. So you'll see a lot of points for this assignment tied to that methods section, which it just kind of reflects the fact that this is a new thing and a lot of the other stuff that you're tying into each other, like the abstract and the introduction and even the discussion, sorry, the citations and references, you've already gotten points for. So those are going to get you a couple more points if you've refined those things, you've cleaned them up, tied them together. But most of the weight for this module is going to be put on that new stuff. And then when you get to the final paper with the final revisions, it's going to be kind of all equally distributed with a lot fewer points involved because all you're doing at that point is kind of cleaning stuff up. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. This module is all about getting those rough drafts together. So instead of having you listen to me drone on for another 15, 20 minutes about stuff you already know, I'm gonna bid you adieu here. I'm gonna wish you the best of luck with this. If you've got any questions about how you're supposed to present stuff, how you're supposed to organize things, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with that and ensure that you're feeling really good about each of the different components of this paper. Because as I said, you're at the finish line for this. Some of you are actually at the finish line for the class. Many of you are going to be really close to being at this finish line with a few probably minor revisions that you need to do. Don't put your energy into this. This can be a grade killer because not only will you lose a lot of points in this section, which unfortunately has happened to some people, but you're going to have to go back to the drawing board. A lot of different components of the final paper, and it's going to feel like a very heavy lift during the last couple days of class. So please do your work now. Get started as soon as you can. Do not hesitate to reach out and ask questions. And hopefully, by the time you're done with this, you feel good about where you are within the class. All right, again, that's it for today. I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.